What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher for an unusually large 13-game Thursday slate. Feels like a Friday or a Wednesday, not like a Thursday. Got these big slates. Mike, how are you feeling after a day off, after a little bit of a lighter schedule for a week? We get our foot back on the gas on the NBA schedule.
Yeah, no warm-ups here. The minutes limit has been taken off. We're playing 48 minutes as far as doing minutes goes today. But yeah, feel pretty good. Hike Camelback, got Pizzeria Bianco with Sam yesterday. Played 9 holes of golf, went to Costco, got some errands done. A busy but very fun off day, so excited to get back into it.
Nice. Let's get to it. Let's start on the injury side. Let's start with Charlotte and Washington, 7 o'clock Eastern start time here on the Charlotte side of things. They're without Trey Mann, KJ Simpson, Grant Williams, and Nick Smith Jr., and they've got a questionable tag listed on Brandon Miller with a left ankle sprain. What are your notes on Brandon Miller's availability tonight?
Yeah, he turned his ankle twice. He turned it once, played through it at first, and turned it again, was, quote, retweaked it, according to Charles Lee. Good thing gets the Q tag here. He's young. It wasn't a bad tweak, so decent chance he's back. But it's unknown. He did hurt it twice. So if he didn't play, I think they would kind of go with the double wing and bring Cody Martin in the mix. And then also LaMelo Ball that we had noted would be on a limit. Hit that at 26. Maybe gets to 30 today. So I think they're going to increase that. So I would expect him, given it's a muscle strain, which Charles Lee talked about, how they were going to take multiple steps to make sure that he's ramped up full. Miles Bridges still looking a little bit of a cap from that aggravated knee issue that he had last month and this month. But yeah, other than that, Mark Williams, minutes up to 17 again, probably going to be a little bit. We talked about this where he's going to get to 24. So maybe 18, 19 today, maybe 20 today, but I would be pretty surprised if it's over 20.
Yeah, and we saw Diabate kind of get back in the mix in this one with like a 3-center split. Imagine that, that role is uncertain kind of going forward in terms of his ability to hold on to that. But if they like playing Diabate, that might cap both Williams and Richards in terms of the minutes that they can get to ultimately. So you might end up seeing something like, I don't know, like 20-28 or 20-18-10 or something like that until Diabate goes away. All right, let's go to the Washington side of things, where Sadiq Bey and Kyle Kuzma remain out, and then Bub Carrington listed questionable with a non-COVID illness. Notable, no Malcolm Brogdon on the injury report here. What are your notes on the Wizards?
Yeah, a lot of returns here. You mentioned Malcolm Brogdon, Corey Kispert, and Keyshawn George, also not on the injury report. They all had ankle injuries, at least Kispert and George did. So that raises a lot of questions. We talked about this last time, how Malcolm Brogdon has an extensive hamstring history here. So I don't think they should. I wouldn't even consider starting him if I'm them. However, it's the Wizards. They like to start him. So I'm not confident in that. So it's probably one of Bub or Brogdon. Obviously, the locked-in starters are Bilal Coulibaly, Jordan Poole, and Alex Sarr, who should start at the 5. I'll get more on that in a second. But yeah, I think it's going to be Bub or Brogdon for one spot. And then you're probably looking at Champagnie or Keyshawn George moving back in the starting lineup. And this number has called me like 3 times in the last 30 minutes. I think given the fact that their first round picks in George and Bub, that they still start. But again, there's a number of I wouldn't be surprised if Champagnie continues to start. There was comments from Brian Keefe saying that they would still look at him as a piece that would be in the rotation. He was out of the rotation before these injuries happened. He's played really well, rebounding the ball very, very well there. So a bit of a mix. Again, expecting Champagnie to be in. He is a candidate to start as well. I'm on an island here with our minutes guys. I don't think that Brogdon starts, but he could. A lot of the guys think he's going to start. So there's that, and then there's the Valanciunas stuff. So Valanciunas played 9 minutes in the last game. That was because Alex Sarr picked up 2 quick fouls, and they put in Marvin Bagley early because they kind of soak up some minutes. And Bagley played like too well, according to Brian Keefe, and that took out Valanciunas' minutes. So really tough scene for Joe Val overall. So it wasn't a health thing. It was Marvin Bagley playing too well to cut him down. So probably coming back to normal there. And then also with these guys coming back, we should see Jared Butler basically go away. Anthony Go almost certainly going away. And then you won't see as many Champagnie minutes regardless if he's, starting or whatever. So, they're almost back to normal-ish health. And funny thing is, The Hornets are 4-point road favorites with their poor play. Really just a testament to how bad this Wizards team is. Muted?
Yep. I said, yeah, the Celtics have won more games in Washington than the Wizards this year. On the Joval note, I would just note that there's going to be a lot of speculation around, getting past the December 15th mark and trades and different things like that. I don't think that's what happened this game. I think this game is just like Joval. This is the worst matchup for him to possibly see the floor in the entire league is against Boston and kind of the way that they challenge you on the perimeter. So I think that was giving Bagley a look who's a little bit of a better fit for that. It's not really a testament to Bagley in that case. It's more, a demerit on Joval for that matchup. Charlotte's not a great matchup for Joval, but it's better than Boston. Boston, I can't think of a matchup that would be worse for Joval to see minutes in than Boston this year.
Gotta be worse.
Okay, let's move to Oklahoma City and Orlando. On the Oklahoma City side, we'll see if there's a hangover from losing in the Emirates NBA Cup championship game. They have a back-to-back that they start this Florida swing with Orlando tonight. They're without Chet Holmgren. And then they've listed out Alex Dukas, Adam Flagler, Nikola Topic, and Jalen Williams, the big. So the same injury report we've seen from OKC for a while now. The question is, do we start to see, Mark Dagnall get back into back-to-back Dagnall, which means play a lot more guys, don't tighten up the 10-man rotation, different things like that. I think we might see that after kind of a disappointing loss in Vegas, the travel out here, the back-to-back component of things. Also, Orlando, a very physical opponent just naturally as well. So what are your thoughts here in terms of what we see from Oklahoma City tonight?
Yeah, they flew out of Las Vegas yesterday morning. So, pretty quick turnaround, as we noted, and it is a back-to-back. So we basically put Aaron Wiggins, who was mostly kind of dead-ish, 6 minutes in this game and routinely was kind of flirting with single digits the last few cup games. We got him kind of back to normal, playing like mid to upper teens there, which takes minutes away from, Caruso, who we got right on the minutes, 24 minutes, but didn't do anything for an over, sadly, there. Maybe we see Dylan Jones back. I kind of don't think so. Certainly, AJ Mitchell should play overall. So, yeah, all these guys who were kind of fringy should be a little bit more firmly in there. Wouldn't be surprised to see Dylan Jones sneak in there just to eat some minutes as well. The next question is how many minutes or who starts? We saw somewhat surprisingly, Cason Wallace came off the bench for both halves. And after the game, Mark Dagnall said they were expecting Chris Middleton to play, and that's kind of why they went with it. Don't know if I buy that, given the fact that we got that Middleton doubtful news pretty early in the day, and they didn't start him in the second half, which they would have done. Mark Dagnall's no stranger to starting different players in the second half. So we'll see. They are going to quote, they're not, quote, settled in on the Cason starting situation, but I still expect Cason to kind of get back in the first unit here. Had been, again, pretty consistently locked in there. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at there. And then, yeah, as you noted, we're taking a little bit of, hey, these minutes got ramped up a ton, playing 38 SGA and, the court semis. We think that the minutes will kind of come back down to give them a bit of a break on this back-to-back.
Yep. On the Orlando side of things, still no Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner. Gary Harris also remains out with a left hamstring strain. What are your notes on Orlando? And the latest report we saw from Paolo was that he's not close, which is disappointing. Yeah. So any notes you have on the Magic here?
Yeah, they're pretty banged up. Obviously, Franz for a bit, and the question is the biggest questions we have here are. I think the biggest question is how many minutes could Tristan da Silva play? Comes off a massive game, career high 32 minutes. Had routinely been like upper teens 20. So yeah, how many minutes could he play? Obviously, he's probably playing at least 20 here, just because they're missing so much of their forward depth. He played pretty decent defense, getting switched on to Jalen Brunson in this game as well. So, yeah, expecting the same starting lineup to stick. We did get a little bit of Mo Wagner overlap with Goga in the last game. I think that's partly because Mo Wagner was absolutely flame-throwing in this game. So part of that could see some of it. And then do they play a little bit smaller? All that stuff. So, yeah, starting lineup should be the same. Certainly Isaac, Mo Wagner, Anthony Black, basically the core group of guys that'll be in there. And then we saw Cole Anthony get really cut down as they played some Corey Joseph. So a bit of a mess for their 9th and 10th. But yeah, it could be Caleb Houston, could be Jet. So we've got all that kind of hedged behind their core 8 guys.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident they'll continue to play big. That's an identity thing for Orlando. And against OKC's defense, the ability to try to generate offensive rebounds is one of the best ways to try to score. And when you're limited offensively in terms of isolation scoring, in terms of individual offensive creation, you need to do so on the board. So would expect Orlando to continue to play big would be my guess. Utah and Detroit on the Utah side of things. Colin Sexton still listed available with the avulsion fracture. That's like 3 weeks going on this available tag. I wonder when we'll get that removed. C. Mikhailuk upgraded to probable with a left groin strain. They're without Cody Williams, Oscar Tshiebwe, Taylor Hendricks, Kyle Filipowski, and Isaiah Collier. Most of those players on G League assignment. So what are your notes here on a relatively healthy Utah Jazz team?
Yeah, sorry, just checking something out real quick. Yeah, so one note I wanted to make that's interesting here, just kind of a macro note on the day. The G League Showcase is today and tomorrow and the upcoming days, and we're seeing a lot more G League players out, and no team is more notable than this one. And Kyle Filipowski and Isaiah Collier. Collier did actually get moved down in the rotation in the last game. So that's something to note, and that's something that I'm going to talk a little bit about. That could affect garbage time for bigger blowouts, but just something you want to keep in mind when thinking through minutes overall and big spreads. So yeah, the question is, how does the back end fill out? Does Patty Mills come in the rotation? I don't think so. So the starting lineup should be the same. I would expect Clarkson to kind of slot in as more of a 1. Johnny Juzang is more of a 2. Bryce Sensabaugh. I think Micah Potter sneaks in the rotation, and I think Drew Eubanks would be their 10. We did see Will Hardy at times, including the last game when the game mattered, which wasn't very long. They were running 9, so they could go 9, cut Eubanks out as well. And overall, the minutes have been a little bit tighter. John Collins playing 38 in a blowout was pretty wild as an aside. So yeah, I feel pretty good about kind of the core group of this. It's just a matter of the last guy in. Is it Eubanks? Is it Potter? Is it Patty Mills? But I think Bryce Sensabaugh and Johnny Juzang have done enough. And they should be pretty secure, in my opinion, with Filipowski and Collier in Orlando for the G League Showcase.
So essentially from this last box score that we have, we're removing Filipowski, Collier, and you think it's 2 of Eubanks, Potter, Mills that are filling those spots, that they're keeping a 10-man rotation.
Pretty much, yeah.
That'd be my expectation as well.
Basically got it like 9.8, pretty close to 10.
Yeah, that would be my expectation as well. I do think they'll get Patty Mills in there, but my guess would be actually Mills and man, I want to say Potter, but it's probably Eubanks with this roster with the way that it's filled out right now.
I'll note that Collier didn't sub until the 3rd, so they were running kind of non-point guard, which was against what they've been doing. They've always had like a quote-unquote point guard. So I'm leaning into this. I think we're leaning into this last game, which I think makes sense because they do want to play these guys a little bit.
All right, Detroit side of things. Jaden Ivey listed doubtful here with the left knee inflammation. They're without Isaiah Stewart due to a left knee hyperextension sprain. They're without their G Leaguers, and then they've got Tobias Harris listed probable. So no Jaden Ivey, no Isaiah Stewart, and a probable tag on Tobias Harris. What are your notes here on Detroit?
Yeah, you would think, again, Jaden Ivey, late scratch that came after lock. No one saw it coming. Pistons have done this so many times. I would say 3 or 4 times with Cade in the last 2-3 years. Done it with Duren a couple times. Done it with others before. Pistons do this a lot. So, shame on them. So the question would be, you would think with Tobias Harris back that they would just, start Malik Beasley, obviously Cade, Duren, and Tim Hardaway Jr. But I wouldn't be totally shocked if they started Asar, who played great in this game, in basically Malik's spot. So I think Tobias is going to come back and start, probable with the thumb, just missed 1 game, should be back in normal-ish. But now that Asar had played well and played 27 minutes, that's a great sign. This guy's, one of their best young prospects, if not the best young prospect on their team. I'm not counting Cade in that group, obviously. So I wouldn't be shocked if Cade and Asar is the backcourt. I guess you could call Tim Hardaway Jr. the 2. So keep an eye on that. We've got a we're calling it about 75% chance Malik Beasley starts, but just something to keep an eye on there. And then obviously without Isaiah Stewart, who tweaked his knee pretty decent, probably missing more time. Couldn't that push up Jalen Duren's minutes, who've been routinely in the mid-20s? Can he get to 30? Not 100% sure on that. They did bring back Paul Reed. They had to waive Paul Reed They signed him officially like minutes before this game, and he was dressed and he played. So that'll cover most of the minutes. And then Asar has size. They've played some Tobias at the center minutes as well. So Asar could play, 4-5 front court as well. So a lot of moving parts here. But the bottom line here is Asar could be back. We've been waiting 2 months now. We said it would be about a month and a half before it kind of mattered. And here we are. I think he may actually be fantasy relevant again.
All right. Let's move to Brooklyn and Toronto. On the Brooklyn side of things, life without Dennis Schroeder was not so merry the first game. We'll get another look at it tonight. They're without Bojan Bogdanovic, Jalen Martin, DeAnthony Melton, Cam Thomas, Trendon Watford, Derek Whitehead, and Zaire Williams. So lots of out tags for Brooklyn. Who's left for tonight's matchup with Toronto?
Yeah, they got really gutted. Losing Trendon Watford is kind of a big deal because he was one of their main ball handlers. We talked about this last year. I've written about it a lot, how his handling is massive. Brought the ball up a ton last year there. So missing him is a pretty big deal. And then obviously this all starts with kind of Ben Simmons and him saying he was playing at about a 27-minute limit. Looked like he was about to hit that, but then Shake Milton fouls out. Watford was already out for injury. So they brought, much to our chagrin, Ben Simmons back in the mix. It's the only game he's played over 27 minutes or 27-10, whatever, all season. So I don't know. I'm kind of buying that he's not going to play that much. I don't think it makes any sense to play him more given his injury history there. So I think he's still going to be around that 27-minute mark just based on the body of work that we've seen from him so far and his history. So it should be the same starting lineup. Now that you're removing Trendon Watford, as I noted, like Tyrese Martin could play in the G League Showcase, but he's not. They have him there because they need him. So expect him to play. So that second unit should be pretty locked in for this second group. Shake at the point, Tyrese at the 2, Jalen Wilson at the 2-3, however you want to call it. Clowney at the 4, Day'Ron Sharpe at the 5 for their 10. Feel pretty good. It's pretty stable of like knowing the 10. It's just, a little push and pull. How many minutes does Dorian Finney-Smith play? Certainly the most well-known piece to be traded there. But yeah, that's kind of pretty stable. And then Nick Claxton also, minutes were really coming high, hanging around like trending for like low 30s. We'll see if he could kind of get back on track as his team's defense has really, really been slipping. And losing Schroeder for offense is quite obvious, but losing him for defense is like kind of a big deal. The Nets on-ball defense, partly because of Schroeder's been really good.
Yeah, should note, while the rotation seems pretty clear in terms of it being 10, they only have 10, right? There's no one else. So if you run into in-game injury, foul trouble, whatever it is, suddenly this can become 9. If you get like 2 of those situations, suddenly this can become 8. So it's like this tricky situation where, yes, we're projecting a 10-man rotation. Yes, we'd expect it to be kind of more balanced. But if one thing happens, you could end up missing really light on projecting a balanced situation because there's no one to back it up to fill it in. A lot of times when we're projecting 10-man rotations, there's 12 or 13 players available that could fill that 10th man. So just kind of highlighting there with Brooklyn. All right. Toronto side of things. Scotty Barnes, shout out to the FanDuel geniuses who priced him at Stoneman today at 3,500. He is questionable tonight with a right ankle sprain. They're still without Jakob Poeltl, Emmanuel Quickly, Bruce Brown. Still, it's injured. They changed the tag from return to competition reconditioning to right knee surgery injury management. So that's sort of a weird change in tag. But what are your notes on Scotty Barnes' potential return tonight? As it looked like that ankle sprain was going to cost him weeks.
Yeah, surprised he got the Q tag today. He wasn't doing contact in practice, did like some of practice on the 16th, just a few days ago, to not be cleared for contact with a pretty quick turnaround. So I think that's like kind of doubtful. We obviously have him in projections, have him a little bit capped on minutes. But yeah, he would be moving back in the starting lineup. That would obviously remove a lot of handling from RJ Barrett. And essentially, I think they would, and we saw late in this game, they closed with Mobo at the center spot. So now that you're moving Jakob Poeltl, I think you're basically taking Scotty and putting him in Poeltl's spot there. We might see Bruno. We saw that weird Bruno start when Poeltl got turned to doubtful and came in a couple games ago. So if Scotty's in, I think the starting lineup would be Point Scotty, RJ, Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, and then Mobo at the center spot. Obviously Kelly Olynyk, you would think he would get more minutes, but there was some commentary from him saying that he hasn't really been right. His back's still bothering him. So we came up a little bit, but we didn't come up a lot. We think he's probably not playing like over 21, 22, given the nature of this back injury that took so long for him to get back. So yeah, I feel pretty good that I'm actually pretty confident that Olynyk's not starting like in any situation here. And then the next question is, can Chris Boucher like come back to life? He was DNP CDing before Scotty got hurt. I'm not 100% sold that he's going to be in the rotation. They do have Jamison Battle for this game. So I think it's between Battle and Boucher to get in there for the last minutes. Jacoby Walter's still in there, certainly. Davion will still be in there. We'll see if Jamal Shed could still be in there. I think he is going to be in there. But yeah, they're clearly playing these younger guys. But I expect Mobo to pick up a pretty big role, kind of regardless of the situation, as we wait for Jakob Poeltl, who should miss, I would say, multiple games. Hey, going back to Jakob Poeltl's preseason quote,
Yep.
hey, this is your time to tank it up, sit down, and then start losing some games.
Yeah, Boucher played well in this one, almost kind of brought them back into the mix here. Interesting if we are considering Scotty sort of like the 4 and Mobo the center, how that impacts things, because I don't know that Mobo Fernando or Mobo, I guess it would be Mobo Fernando Olynyk. I think at this point, Kelly O, like, you can't project for more than 15 minutes. I don't think you can even like.
Oh, really? 15?
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't cleared 15 yet. So like, and if he's saying that he's like not been right, I don't think you can project him for more than that at this point. So yeah, I think at this point, like, I agree with you that Kelly O is largely irrelevant for Poeltl because I don't think he's healthy enough to be relevant. So it would be interesting to see how they choose to go about handling kind of filling out those center minutes. Boucher has been treated more as a power forward for them for sure. But if they're just down bodies, they still have Mobo, Olynyk, Boucher, Fernando. So they still have plenty of bodies to consider at the 4 and 5. Things get weird if Barnes is out though, right? Like in terms of what do you think happens there if Barnes is out? Who starts in his place? Which is really in Poeltl's place from this last box score.
Yeah. I mean, it's Mobo for sure, regardless. But I don't know. I think it might be Jacoby. I think they might kind of just go that route and play point RJ, Grady Dick, have like kind of a wingy lineup. I don't think it's going to be Boucher. It might be though. That would be a pretty big deal. Yeah, I think they would you could play small. So I would say Jacoby actually.
Yeah, it's a messy situation for sure if Barnes misses without Poeltl, because the front court depth starts to get tested in a way.
It could be Bruno too. Actually, it might actually take. It's probably like Bruno Taj Gibson-esque start where he's going to start and like play 15 minutes.
Yeah,
that's probably my lean on who starts.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Chicago and Boston. On the Chicago side of things, Josh Giddey questionable with a right ankle sprain, was reportedly in slippers at shoot around today. Was the report, which I've never seen a report on footwear at shoot around, but shout out to the Bulls beats. Dalen Terry also questionable with a right knee contusion here. Their G Leaguers are listed out. What are your notes on the Bulls and Josh Giddey's availability tonight?
Yeah, shout out Casey Johnson, who you're referring to there. Definitely one of the best beats, if not the best beat, since I've been covering the NBA. So yeah, we're expecting him out. Billy Donaldson unlikely to play. Hey, you're in slippers. You're slipping out of the starting lineup. You're not going to play. So yeah, pretty clear to me who's going to start. Obviously, it's going to be Kobe White. Very, very confident. Ayo Dosunmu starts. Zach LaVine should be good. There's some talk that he's going to have to be. I'll just say this: we're going to probably get a Zach LaVine game time decision tweet later today. Should be good, but just to note that, be ready for that, you guys. And then Patrick Williams should remain in the starting lineup. Vooch also starting. Matas Buzella should have a pretty decent role off the bench. And then Lonzo, 23 minutes off the bench. I don't know if they could play him night in, night out 23, but I don't know. It's a good sign. Maybe he could play 21, 22 consistently. Minutes coming up clearly. Taylor Horton-Tucker also playing a lot. Would expect him in the rotation. Julian Phillips and then Sticks, a.k.a. Jalen Smith, should handle pretty much all the non-Vooch minutes there.
Yeah, they made it pretty clear that they view it's interesting because we've been talking about kind of like all season long that positionally Giddey is a little bit more of like a power forward for them in terms of like where his minutes competition is. But in terms of this last game that was without Zach LaVine, we saw that they clearly view Zach LaVine as a guard, right? They filled all his minutes with guards, Taylor Horton-Tucker. So Giddey, I don't know if he's to miss and LaVine's able to play, if we see naturally Taylor Horton-Tucker, maybe benefit as much. Maybe it's more Montas in this situation because of the way that they treated Josh Giddey kind of in the past, or maybe Patrick Williams starts to get a little bit further beyond the minute, or a little bit closer to the minutes restrictions that they've talked about in terms of 24, which we haven't seen him touch yet. Okay, Boston side of things. They've got Kristaps Porzingis listed questionable with the right heel contusion, Xavier Tillman listed questionable with the non-COVID illness, and Sam Hauser questionable with low back spasms. Also, the G Leaguers listed out here: Drew Peterson, J.D. Davison, Baylor Shireman, and Anton Watson. What are your expectations for the availability of Kristaps Porzingis and Sam Hauser, to a lesser extent Xavier Tillman, tonight?
Yeah, it should. Porzingis City expects to play. He was kind of limited in practice early this week, just doing some shooting and some weight stuff, according to Joe Mazzulla. So I don't know. I'll give him the credit for saying he thinks he should play. So, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be anything serious. Anytime Porzingis is hurt, I always just think they should sit him out, especially given the spread here. So decent chance he plays. Don't have a great read on the situation, despite him saying he's going to play. Hauser should be good. Don't have really a great read on that situation. Didn't find much. Obviously, if these guys didn't play, that would play them a little bit bigger. Peyton Pritchard would play a ton overall. And then, Tillman's 6. I don't really have anything to add there. Obviously, that would secure Cornet and Neemias Queta. Obviously, that they would play a lot more if Porzingis didn't play. But huge spread here, being off for a few days as well.
All right, let's go to Atlanta and San Antonio. On the Atlanta side, no Onyeka Okongwu, and this is going to be for a couple of games. Left knee inflammation. This is always sort of the issue with Onyeka Okongwu, is he's just not been able to stay healthy for long periods of time during the course of the season. Trae Young probable with the right Achilles tendonitis here. They are also listing their G Leaguers out: Seth Lundy, Muhammad Gee, Kobe Buffkin, and Keaton Wallace. What are your notes here on how Atlanta counteracts the absence of Onyeka Okongwu?
Yeah, tough scene here. Kobe Buffkin out for the year. They also waived Seth Lundy, and then Onyeka Okongwu going to miss multiple games here with knee injury. Should know he hurt his toe. That cost him the preseason, and earlier this year they were managing him as well. So different injury there. Believe he has a history. I didn't officially check that. A little too busy to check for injury history today. But he will miss some time. That raises a question to me, which is weird. So you noted those G League guys are out, and I'm talking about how guys who are G League and borderline are usually just going to go to Orlando for the G League showcase. It's weird to me that Dominic Barlow isn't with the College Park team. So that's just odd to me. I'm pretty sure Larry Nance is going to handle most of, if not all, the non-Capella minutes there. But just that struck me as a weird one, not seeing him on the G League team there. So obviously Vit Krejci should play all the non-trays now without Buffkin. Wouldn't expect them to kind of go 9 there with basically what I've got on the screen. Nance is in a Okongwu spot, and then you're not going to see as many 40s, 39s now that the cup grades are over. But tough scene for Okongwu. Expect Capella to probably touch upper 20s a little bit more often here as well.
What are your thoughts in terms of Capella, Nance? Is it a full 48? Do we get some small ball Jalen Johnson at the center spot? Obviously, the Barlow question mark kind of looms. That he's used largely as a center. What's the split there? Because Capella's minutes have been kind of managed throughout the course of the season. He started to get up a little bit higher in the cup games. They're not involved in a back-to-back here. So what are your thoughts on the Capella and Nance split relative to the potential for small ball tonight?
Yeah, I think it's upper 20s is pretty solid. I'd be pretty surprised if he's under 24. I feel pretty good that he's going to be in a decent spot. They got to let him play. He's been healthy for the most part. I haven't really seen him on the injury report at all this year. And then Nance is probably in around 20. I don't know, man. I'm freaking about this Barlow thing. I wouldn't be surprised, if we see Barlow sneak in there and they play, even splitting Larry Nance. Larry Nance has been pretty bad on the season, in my opinion. Yeah,
it could just be depth that they just don't have any front court depth really, and one injury away from things getting real onyeka. That's probably most likely what it is. Shout out to the machine for the 4th year in a row of Clint Capella outpacing Onyeka Okongwu. All right, San Antonio Spurs. Zach Collins questionable. They have probable tags on Keldon Johnson and Trey Jones. What are your expectations for what we see from the Spurs tonight? Is there lineups and rotation have been kind of in flux ever since we got Jeremy Sohan back. Because when we got Jeremy Sohan back, then they played in some back-to-backs. We lost Victor Wembanyama for a game or two. We lost, Devin Vassell to a back-to-back. We haven't had a lot of like stabilization from San Antonio since Jeremy Sohan has returned. So what are your expectations here tonight for San Antonio?
Yeah, the Mitch Johnson was asked, the Beats were really trying to get an answer out of him. They asked like 3 times, like different ways, if Sohan was going to stick in the starting lineup. And he said he wouldn't commit to it. He said, oh yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, basically, because guys have been in and out of the lineup. And now, as you noted, like getting Trey Jones back, getting Keldon back, Devin Vassell not on as much of a minutes anymore. It's obviously Wemby in there. It's getting pretty tight. So I think Sohan continues to start. So we'll see if that brings Stephen Castle's minutes down. How much could he get cut down more? Obviously, bringing Keldon back, that'll make, the Sandro Mamukashvili's, Malachi Branham's, Blake Wesley's, City Sudoku, all those guys will be going away. But, does this squeeze Champagnie? Does this squeeze Castle? Does it squeeze Harrison Barnes? We've been waiting for it. Does Castle start over Harrison Barnes? I kind of don't think so now, after not starting him the last game. So, yeah, for now, expecting basically the same starting lineup that's on the screen. Zach Collins hurt his back last week, missed some time. It was a pretty nasty fall. And he might not play anyways. They might just want to get him right. Guy's been injury-prone a lot in his career. So, yeah, the starting 5, I think, is the same. Obviously, Castle will still be in there. Vassell will still be in there. Trey Jones should be in there, returning from injury as well. And then, it's getting Keldon. So that's kind of their core guys. And we'll see if anybody sneaks in there. If it's Zach Collins, they could play small. We saw some small ball stuff in the past too. But, yeah, I feel like it's tight. This seems, pretty deep all of a sudden.
So that would be a 9-man rotation. Is that right? Including Trey Jones. But the chance that they could expand to 10 if they wanted to include somebody like Sandro or Blake Wesley or somebody like that, or Branham, but probably 9, most likely, it seems like. And then I guess the matchup is interesting from the perspective of, defensively, they've liked to use him as like a primary defender, and you've got 2 players that he could fit as guarding in terms of Trae Young or Jalen Johnson in terms of the size there. But then in the second unit, you also have, if Atlanta, Larry Nance is like a smaller 5, right? You'd have a smaller second unit 5. You could also make the argument, Jeremy Sohan as a second unit 5 is kind of interesting from that perspective. But I think they've been happy with what they've gotten from Charles Bassey, so I don't think you're going to see much of the smaller 5. So I think you're right that Sohan starts here. But yeah, the push and pull with like him and Stephen Castle has been pretty real. It hasn't impacted Harrison Barnes and Julian Champagnie at this point. And I think part of that is just that they view that, look, Sohan and Castle, they're defenders and they're non-shooters generally, is kind of, and so they're getting bucketed together, whereas Champagnie and Barnes are shooters and they need shooting and spacing. So I think that's what's happening right now, even though Castle and Sohan, the more talented long-term fits. Okay. Golden State and Memphis. On the Golden State side, pretty easy injury report. Just Moses Moody out, but very difficult rotation as we have the integration of Dennis Schroeder, who they acquired. So what are your notes here on the Warriors?
Yeah, this will be the first game we get to see Dennis Schroeder in the lineup. The big question, one of the big questions of the day is, does he start? Matchup? Kind of think so. I think they want to put him on John Morant. We'll get to John Morant in a second on the injury report. So I think it's going to be Steph, Schroeder, Wiggins, Kuminga, and I think it's going to be Draymond Green at the 5 spot. This team's got a lot of guards now. I just think it's cleaner to start that way, and you're going to squeeze Trace Jackson Davis a little bit, Looney a little bit. It could be Buddy. They could bring – I would expect – the one thing I feel confident in this whole situation is Schroeder's for sure getting the non-Stephs, whether he starts next to him and still gets it, or it's just probably easier to like just bring – I think it's easier to bring him off the bench given the fact that he's new, but I don't know. I think for the matchup, and I just think Kerr wants to like get it going now. Find out more about your team now, and then because they're still open to making more trades, I'd rather just play Schroeder, see that fit as much as you can, and then kind of go from there. Obviously, they didn't pay very much to get him, pretty much because the Nets traded him the first chance they could get, which is a sign the Nets could be unloading more guys. I'll say I actually took under Nets 22.5 wins the other day. So, yeah, that's where we're at. So the next question is, to me, how much does Pods get squeezed, man? I mean, he played 16 minutes in the last game. Few games ago, he played 20 minutes at a game without Andrew Wiggins. He could really feel the squeeze here. I don't think Buddy's going to feel much of a squeeze. Certainly, the minutes upside is going to be off the table, where he's playing like I would say 30 plus. So he's going to get squeezed a little bit. Does Lindy go away? How much does Gary Payton play? Still think they like Gary Payton for most of the non-Wiggins. They might need Gary Payton for the matchup. I think Gary Payton's defensive skill set could be really, really valuable. Not a shock to see him start, honestly, there. So yeah, it's just a matter of these guys getting squeezed as they integrate Schroeder, who's, as I mentioned on the net stuff, has been pretty valuable as a playmaker, as a defender, and just a guy who could handle the ball and run pick and roll that this offense has been trying to add.
Yeah, I think Schroeder starts. I think long term, the squeeze is going to like what we've learned from Kerr so far is he's willing to play lots of guys. So I think it's going to impact everybody because he's still going to try to play lots of guys would be my guess. And so, all the guards kind of get impacted. I think the guys who get most impacted are probably Podziemski or Lindy, then probably Podziemski and then Payton. I think long-term Payton's role becomes a lot more questionable. Just because like Schroeder can be an all on-ball defense guy and he's not a great floor spacer. So if he's playing a lot, I think that makes it a little bit tougher to have Gary Payton out there. But I do think in this type of matchup with like a bigger guard in John Morant that they're going to want to use a bigger wing defender on. I could definitely see that being the case for Payton. But I think his minutes range is going to be really tight and really low. And I think you're nailed it in terms of like at most kind of the non-Wiggins at this point for Payton. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how condensed they get this. We have the rumblings of like, hey, we want to get away from this 12-man rotation. Then they go acquire somebody without any rotation pieces going out. And it's like, all right, now what? So very difficult projection situation here. And I'm very interested to see where Steve Kerr takes this in terms of like trying to condense the rotation because the West play-in battle is going to be ugly in terms of trying to avoid the play-in this year. The West is obviously very loaded. Okay.
Yeah, they're Memphis playing really poorly right now too. It's just a quick aside.
Memphis side, John Morant questionable with the low back soreness. Marcus Smart doubtful here with left shoulder soreness there without Gigi Jackson, Jay Huff, and Vince Williams Jr. What are your notes here on Ja's questionable tag tonight?
Pretty sure Ja's playing. I had a lot of commentary at practice yesterday or 2 days ago, just saying how he didn't really talk about it. The big thing he talked about, interestingly enough, was just getting Desmond Bean going. He said that's like a thing that's a priority for them. So interested to see if Desmond Bean, who's been really bad since returning from an oblique injury, if he can get going. But yeah, Marcus Smart doubtful. Doesn't sound serious. Heard it in the last game there. So, removing him, you're getting a little bit more Scotty for sure to play the non-Jaws. Does he come up more? I think you definitely need someone like Scotty to hound Steph. So I think Scotty could play a little bit. Obviously, this is off the bench. So the starters, the four, I think are the same for sure. Ja, Desmond Bain, Jalen Wells, and Jaren Jackson Jr. We saw Zach Edey return and play pretty well off the bench in the Lakers game. I could see him starting. He had some comments about Draymond Green. We've seen Draymond Green kind of, antagonize him and solicit, reactions out of him. So I kind of think that they're going to start Zach Edey in this situation, which is tough. Not confident in that. So I think those guys will handle the bulk. Brandon Clark and Edey handle, 38, 39, and we'll still see some Jaren at the 5. So, and then Santi Aldama, Jake LaRavia's role could grow. We know he's been a big wing defender, especially when Smart was out. So those guys, Luke Kennard was almost out of the rotation in this game. Came in mid second as they were kind of trailing. So he should still be in there. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So I mentioned the starters: Santi, Jake LaRavia, Luke Kennard, and Scotty should be pretty firm where this rotation's at. I still don't think we're going to go see to Conchar and those guys.
All right, New Orleans and Houston. On the New Orleans side, Jose Alvarado, Brandon Ingram, Carlo Makovich, Daniel Tice, and Zion Williamson remain out. Jordan Hawkins listed available today. So what are your notes on this Pels version where we've got Trey Murphy, we've got Herb Jones, we've got CJ McCollum and DeJounte Murray, but now no Brandon Ingram?
Yeah, Ingram's going to be out for a bit. I mentioned on the show last week that they basically said all-star break in my opinion. They said it wasn't season ending. Like they're really putting the doom and gloom on Brandon Ingram. So yeah, starting lineups locked and loaded. They are going to get Jeremiah Robinson Earl back, so I would expect him to handle the non-Yves Missy's minutes. Missy's been playing great. He might be the favorite for Rookie of the Year at this point. We just talked about Stephen Castle's minutes getting really cut down lately, so just a random note there. But yeah, Javonte Green still should play a decent bit. We expect Jamal Cain to go away. Jordan Hawkins, as you noted, is upgraded to available. He will return. I would be pretty shocked if he wasn't severely capped. This back injury has been bothering him multiple times, in and out of the lineup for about a month. Has missed multiple games here. So yeah, he'll be in the mix. That should take a little bit of mid-ceiling away from Brandon Boston. Still expect Boston to play, but you're adding Boston's not a defender. He's a guy who creates offense. That's what Jordan Hawkins does. So you could see. I think what makes the most sense to me, and get your thoughts. I think Hawkins just plays the non-trays just to get some more shooting out there. Maybe a little bit of overlap, but not much there. So yeah, but yeah, he'll be in there. Robinson Earl locked in there. I think Javante's locked in there, and Brandon Boston's locked in there for pretty much their core. They're pretty much core 10 there.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that kind of start Hawkins back a little bit slowly. Maybe long term, maybe he gets up to like an 18-minute a night type role. But I think I'd be surprised. They have enough offense, so I think it's really a defense thing in terms of what they need to focus on, especially in that second unit. So I'm with you there. Houston side, Steven Adams questionable, Tariq Eason questionable, Alperen Sengun questionable. Those are the bigs. Left ankle sprain on Adams, lower left leg injury management on Tariq Eason, and left knee soreness on Alperen Sengun. The other G Leaguers are out here. So what are your notes on what we see for Houston's front court tonight?
Odd tag on Tari, right? And this is an injury that he had surgery on, season ending, not a back-to-back, and they've been off since Saturday. So, kind of concerning for him to get that tag there. Maybe he suffered an injury over the weekend. Only playing 17 was a bit surprising there. So, yeah, don't have a great read on that yet. The Sengun thing was the same thing he was listed with last week, so it should be good. He was generally unaffected by that, so expect these guys to go, but they might hold Tari out. That's concerning. So yeah, we'll see. If Tari sits this one out, that's a bit of a red flag. That probably means he's not playing back-to-backs for a little bit, just because of the nature of the injury and the history.
All right, let's move to Clippers and Dallas. On the Clippers side of things, Derrick Jones Jr. still listed questionable with the right hamstring strain. Kawhi Leonard out with the right knee injury recovery. They're traveling with the team. Terrence Mann out due to a left middle finger fracture. What are your notes on what we can expect from the Clippers, and does Derrick Jones Jr. return tonight?
Yeah, it sounds like Derrick Jones Jr. could be back a little bit sooner for me, so I think it's a little bit on the doubtful side. We should note they gave Norm Powell questionable tags over and over again and didn't play him. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think Derrick Jones Jr. is on the doubtful side of this tag. It's a pretty quick return from an injury that was pretty legit. So I think he's on the doubtful side. That should get Amir Coffey in the starting lineup there. And if Derrick Jones Jr. did play, it would be a pretty hefty cap. We saw Norm Powell get capped on his hamstring thing. As you guys know who watch the show a lot, hamstrings are routinely capped with a multiple step process to get back to full-ish minutes. So yeah, that should get Nick Batum secure minutes. Kevin Porter Jr.'s minutes would go up. Jordan Miller still in the rotation regardless. Bones Highland was out of the rotation last game after being decently in the rotation 2 games ago. So he would be borderline-ish regardless. We saw Chris Dunn play through an illness tag. Not listed, but we'll see. He's been playing through that for a bit, according to Tyler. So keep an eye on that. Just can't. Yeah. Chris Dunn could never get minutes. It's been pretty annoying there. But and then also one other note: the amount of blowouts this team is in is ridiculous. Like they've been a blowout like 75% of their games in the last 3 weeks. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that's why Chris Dunn hasn't been able to get the minutes most times. I think that late Q tag that he got last game, I honestly think that was just fine protection from the Clippers PR, yes, because Ty Lue had mentioned that he was dealing with illness and it wasn't on the injury report at all. And then after that pregame interview, they added him to the injury report. And so I just think that was fine protection. I think he was always going to play last game.
Shout out to Steve Ballmer. The best way to stay rich is don't get fined by the NBA.
Yeah,
billions and billions of dollars.
Dallas side of things, no Luka Doncic, left heel contusion, no Jaden Hardy, right ankle sprain, Dante Exum still with the right wrist surgery, and then Kyrie Irving questionable here with right shoulder soreness. So we could see Dallas without Luka and Kyrie. We haven't seen that, I believe, this year, as Kyrie's been very, very healthy. What are your expectations on this Kyrie Q tag, and when and if we'll see him tonight?
Pretty sure he's playing. Went through practice. This is the shoulder injury that they managed him in a back-to-back previously, so I'm pretty sure he's in. Doesn't sound like Luka didn't practice yesterday. We talked a lot about this last year, that Luka's left leg takes so much contact, but by just taking contact because he's in the paint all the time. So sounds like a day-to-day thing, maybe just a management thing. They're playing great basketball. One of the hottest teams in the NBA right now. So yeah, I think it's just a management for Luka. But yeah, expect Kyrie in there. Feel quite confident that Quentin Grimes would draw the start here. Probably going to guard James Harden for the bulk of the minutes there. So yeah, starting lineup of Kyrie, Quentin Grimes, Klay Thompson is playing great. Obviously, great game from Klay. In a ridiculous game over the weekend, Warriors dropped 27 threes and freaking lose because the Mavs absolutely lit them up. So so expect that starting lineup. PJ, Derek Lively, and then Spencer Dinwiddie's role will grow significantly. Omex Prosper should be in there. Obviously, Daniel Gafford's still in the mix, but they don't have Jaden Hardy, so it could condense a little bit. We could see Spencer and Grimes play a little bit more than we're accustomed to. We don't usually see those guys touch 30, but there's a chance that one of, if not both of them, get up there. Obviously, if Kyrie didn't play and I'm wrong, Spencer Dinwiddie would likely start and play a boatload just because they'd be really, really thin on ball handlers there. Yeah, he'd be really the only legit handler that they have. So he could have a pretty big role if I have this Kyrie read wrong.
Yep. All right, let's go to Indiana and Phoenix. On the Indiana side of things, they make the move to acquire Thomas Bryant at the December 15th deadline, technically in advance of the deadline was the reporting on that. They are without Isaiah Jackson and James Weissman. Enrique Freeman listed doubtful. They listed their G Leaguers doubtful, which is interesting. Quentin Jackson,
of course.
Enrique Freeman, and Tristan Newton. Ben Shepherd questionable with a left oblique strain. They have been hurting for depth on the wings, so potential for his return. Aaron Nesmith remains out. What are your notes here on the Pacers?
Let me see. It would be funny if they were doubtful and they were playing right now. Where are they at? I can't see them, man. Oh, they play tomorrow, so they could conceivably, make it down to Orlando, but that's pretty tough. So I don't think I saw them. So just another note that's random. TJ McConnell got inducted to the Ring of Honor at U of A, and most of the team was there. I didn't see Tyrese Halliburton there, interestingly enough, in the pictures. And I didn't see the G League guys, so I don't think the G League guys are going to play. I think they're going to be in the G League showcase. So yeah, as you noted, Thomas Bryant returned, pretty much picked up most of the non-turners. Expect that to continue, which takes a little bit of mid ceiling away from Obi Toppin. A little bit. Again, you're kind of like filtering out. Obi not playing at the center much, and that's going to really trickle down to, cutting down some of Furphy, cutting down some of the McConnell overlap, taking away a little minute ceiling from Siakam, because they haven't had a backup center since those double Achilles tears from James Weissman and Isaiah Jackson. So he'll be in the rotation. They traded for him for a reason. So that's should be pretty stable, as I expect Obi Toppin's minutes to hang around more towards around 20 as opposed to like 25, 26, which he was playing for a good couple weeks there as he just picked up so much small ball center minutes.
And then Ben Shepherd, do you think he returns tonight off this Q tag?
Yeah, Ben Shepherd, my bad. He should. It sounded like he was going through some contact. It didn't sound like a great quote from Carlisle. Let me get that real quick. He said that he's returning in sometime not too distant future. So kind of on a doubtful side to me. Haven't done their minutes yet, but yeah, it's sounding like he's a little bit closer to doubtful. Should note that Aaron Nesmith hasn't gone live yet as well. So and the framing around Jarris Walker getting minutes, all that stuff. It's painting a picture that Ben Shepherd's probably not ready to go yet.
Okay. And you heard it here first, content aggregators. Tyrese Halliburton and TJ McConnell beefing. And that is why Tyrese Halliburton was not at the U of A induction for TJ McConnell. Mike Gallagher.
Well, I just didn't see him. I could be wrong.
Mike Gallagher trying to start stuff with Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton in the club with family. People want to start stuff on that. Now U of A. It's Mike Gallagher, just one of the aggregators out here. All right, Phoenix Suns side of things. Bradley Beal listed available with a right knee swelling. They're without their G Leaguers. Otherwise, it looks like a healthy Suns team. No Kevin Durant on the injury report. What are your notes here for Phoenix?
Yeah, Beal should be limited, right? Returning from knee swelling, missed some time there. That came out of nowhere last week at that midday Q tag when didn't play. So, yeah, should be back, should be starting there. That would bump Royce O'Neal back to the bench. Kevin Durant, as we noted, we said that he was going to return from this ankle injury and quickly get back to normal, and that's exactly what happened. So, yeah, those guys will continue to start. Nurkic has been playing pretty well coming off injury. He's been quite stable. And then also Mike Budenholzer said that there's going to be nights when they might play Mason Plumlee, and then other nights they might play Oso Ighodaro. Don't think that's 14 game slate. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
But just something to note, keep in your back pocket. Obviously, Grayson Allen firmly in the mix. And then Monte Morris is playing more as Ryan Dunn's hit a bit of a rookie wall there. So, yeah, but yeah, I expect Beal. Haven't done their minutes yet. I'd probably be like 29 Beal. I don't think that they're going to want to play him too much over 30 given his history and its knee swelling.
Knicks and Minnesota, the return of Karl Anthony Towns to Minnesota. We got a questionable tag on Josh Hart due to personal reasons, still without Mitchell Robinson and without the G Leaguers here. What are your notes on Josh Hart and the personal reasons Q tag?
Yeah, late one. Just got this one, about an hour and a half ago. So don't have a great read on that. I will say, though, if he didn't start, quite confident that Deuce McBride would move in the starting lineup there. That would obviously up Precious's minutes. We'd see a little more campaign. Maybe we see other guys, but they might just run at 7. And then obviously, Cat played 43 minutes over the weekend, would play a ton of minutes here. It's a fun one. I'll talk more about the matchup on the Minnesota side that I think is interesting there too. But yeah, it would just be mega minutes here. Maybe they bring in, Jericho Sims and play Precious as more of a 4. I think that kind of makes sense. We've seen them do that a little bit. So yeah, they just play pretty big, which makes sense too, matchup wise, right? We know the Wolves have a lot of size, but yeah, tough to read that that questionable personal time, which probably doubtful, right? Like, to get that late tag, if it's personal reasons and it's a road game, like, you'd think he's probably not playing.
Yeah, I hate that tag when it's a road game because I think the team knows and we don't know, and that's just annoying. On to the Minnesota side of things, no Joe Ingles, and then the G Leaguers out here. What are your notes on the Timberwolves, who've been playing much better over the last few weeks?
Yeah, insane defense. They just holding teams under 100 by like a lot, like some 80-point games. They've been fantastic. And yeah, the interesting notes were from talked about this with some on the hike. They haven't been playing Jaden on the ball as much, and it's allowed him to rebound better, allowed him to get some more steals as well. I think in this matchup they aren't going to do that. I think that they're going to put him on Jalen Brunson as well, but wouldn't be like totally shocked if they put him on Cat. I think they're going to do the Randall on Cat and then have Rudy Gobert float assignment. I think that matchup works. We have always talked about how Cat has been better against like traditional bigs than 4s, but I don't know. Randall's not really the guy you want, so it might be Gobert. Don't have a great read on that situation. And then the other notes here is Dante DiVincenzo's minutes are coming down. They have been sneaking in Rob Dillingham for minutes, so we'll see if that squeezes him. And then also Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like, you're going to need on-ball defense for sure. So definitely could see a pretty good boost in Nas minutes if they did want to keep Jaden Daniels as a low man in their pick and roll coverages as well, because he can block some shots. He's got some huge length obviously there. So yeah, exciting game. Definitely one of the best games that I'm most excited about here. And then more Jaden, like, not fouling at all. His fouls have been really, really low. And also Chris Finch said that he's playing out of this world. So a lot of my guy, Jaden McDaniels, has been, playing some pretty good basketball lately.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, honestly, the low fouls, moving off ball, all that stuff helps. He was getting cooked all year on ball. So, I mean, he was not playing at elite level defender that he's been for the last 3 years on ball this year. I mean, the number of times I remember we've had unders on him, the guys are just absolutely cooking him this year. So I think taking him off ball has freed up a lot for them. And I would imagine that sticks tonight too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Conley's minutes kind of come down at the expense of Nickeil Alexander-Walker to keep Jaden McDaniels in kind of an off ball role tonight. Okay. Denver and Portland. On the Denver side, Christian Braun listed questionable with the low back strain. He missed their last game, slid Russell Westbrook in the starting lineup, who played really well in a very entertaining game against Sacramento. What are your expectations here tonight for Christian Braun and his availability? They are without Dario Saric as well.
Should be back. Looks sound like he was pretty close to playing the last game, so I think he's going to be back out there. But yeah, Jamal Murray has been playing better. This was a really strong offensive game from the Nuggets. Just absolutely, Aaron Gordon, just absolute smash. So many back cuts that Mike Brown was furious about here. So I think Brown's back. Obviously, the Nuggets are in the news now with the Michael Porter Jr., Zach LaVine stuff, which interesting. Not like MPJ is playing too poorly, but going back to that LA game where we talked about Peyton Watson being UCLA and then Michael Porter being from the area, like did that set off some of their players? Because you wouldn't think that MPJ, given the way he's again not playing great, but not playing like poorly. Obviously, there's money concerns here, all that stuff, but interesting for sure. I don't know. I'm not. I feel like it's a little bit forced. We know that nothing gets clicks like trade talk. So I think it's a little bit of that, but we'll save that for another day. So yeah, I think Brown's in. If he's not, obviously Russell Westbrook would start and play a ton as well.
Yeah, I'll just note for those of you out there that are Michael Porter Jr. like season long or dynasty holders, I would be pretty concerned if he moved away from Nikola Jokic, what that would look like for his value. So I wouldn't mind floating that out there. And if you're a Denver Nuggets front office or personnel guy at this point, if you see two players that statistically look similar, and one player is on your team and he's been compiling those numbers with Nikola Jokic, and the other player has been compiling numbers that are similar without Nikola Jokic, I think at this point we have to assume, based on what we've seen from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope when he's moved on, from what we've seen from Bruce Brown when he came in, that Nikola Jokic is going to make a lot of players better. And so if you've got two guys that look exactly the same, the guy that's not playing with Nikola Jokic is probably better. And so I think that's kind of what the Nuggets are thinking through with some of this stuff. Portland side of things, DeAndre Ayton and Delano Banton, both questionable. Ayton with an illness tag, Banton with left hip contusion. They're still without Matisse Thybulle. What are your notes on the Blazers?
Yeah, Ayton, man. This is pretty frustrating. The illness, the hand, the driveways. He's having a hard time getting on the court these days. Yeah, Donovan Clingan's going to be limited regardless. I think they want to keep his minutes in check, returning from the MCL sprain. So we'll see about DeAndre Ayton returning here. And then, yeah, just pretty high minutes from a lot of guys. Anthony Simon still played a ton. I think Scoot Henderson's still like mildly limited from that quad injury that cut him down earlier this month. But still playing Denny. They like Denny Avdija at the 5. Billups talked a lot about that. And then obviously Time Lord's minutes will be pretty severely capped. We'll see if he even plays at all. If DeAndre plays, because I think that they want to give Clingan pretty consistent minutes here.
All right, last game of the slate to talk through, the Lakers and the Kings. On the Lakers side of things, Anthony Davis listed probable with left plantar fasciitis. LeBron James listed questionable with left foot injury management. Still without Jared Vanderbilt, Christian Wood, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Jackson Hayes, and Bronny James on G League assignment as well. What are your notes here on the Lakers in this Q tag for LeBron James?
Yeah, I think we're going to get this thing for a bit. We played this game a lot last year where they just list LeBron questionable like every day. So we might get that for a little bit. Don't have too much to add on the LeBron front. And then Anthony Davis has had this probable tag basically since he hurt himself the last time they played Memphis, not the one that's on the screen. Yeah, so the other note here is Max Christie. I feel pretty good Max Christie has won this job. Had a pretty good defensive job on John Morant. Obviously, he's not fantasy ball because he didn't shoot. But expect him to start. So expecting this starting lineup to stick. Austin Reeves, Max Christie, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, Anthony Davis. D'Angelo's minutes continue to get cut. Gabe Vincent was the other candidate to start. They said that they were considering starting Gabe for the matchup and for some shooting, but they went with Max, and Max separated. I feel quite strongly about that. And then we'll see Cam Reddish still in the mix, Koloko somewhat in the mix for pretty much. And then Dalton's minutes are really far down. But we know that Redick liked to run 9. He's been kind of running tighter on the up top and then spreading out those bench minutes because, as I noted, Connect's been really bad. D'Angelo has been quite bad. Koloko has been mostly useless, and Cam, they like Cam. I mean, people like to bash Cam, and mostly justified, but he's been pretty consistent for them defensively and hasn't been making as many mistakes.
Yep. Sacramento side of things, Domantas Sabonis and Keegan Murray both questionable here, but went through shoot around today. Kevin Huerter also questionable with a left AC joint sprain. They've also listed their G Leaguers out here. What are your notes on the questionable tags for the Kings tonight?
Yeah, as you noted, through shoot around, Keegan Murray said he's going to play. So Keegan's been extremely durable in his career. I expect him to be back and starting. That'll kick out Doug McDermott will take Domantas Sabonis at his word, going through shoot around as well. Expect him to play insanely durable players, so expect those guys back. They're also getting Trey Lyles back, returning from a calf injury. He had a groin injury earlier this year, so not the same injury, but for sure, again, soft tissue. We know he's going to be capped. Maybe he plays 15 minutes at most, especially with the starters in. Obviously, if Sabonis is out, maybe we're playing 18, 19, but wouldn't expect him to play a lot there. So yeah, and the next question is, how much does Kobe Jones play? A lot of really positive commentary. We saw this happen to Keon last year, where Keon was like not even close to consistent minutes, has a big game in garbage time in Houston, and then all of a sudden, Keon getting nightly 20-minute games. So yeah, I think Kobe could be someone to keep an eye on, a guy I've enjoyed watching in summer league. But yeah, pretty much healthy here. Maybe this could just all be BS. Again, integrating Trey Lyles, and should note I don't think Kevin Huerter is going to play. Again, same injury, hurt last year. I'm sorry, in the preseason there. So I think Huerter plays. So I think that's the path to Kobe Jones finding minutes, which makes sense. Like, you're talking about this guy is going to help replace minutes. Obviously, Keon will play more. And then also should note, Mike Brown was really pissed. I talked about the back cutting when I talked Denver, but he called out his starters for being better defensively. He said De'Aaron Fox, mentioned Fox by name, having being better defensively. Called out Malik Monk a little bit. He was asked about Malik Monk getting 10 assists, and he basically said, I don't care. He needs to play better defense there. So yeah, we'll see if Mike Brown can get his guys to play better. And they've been pretty good. We talked about this a lot this year. Their rim defense has been really strong. They've been a big 3-point funnel. They're the league's best transition defense this year. So interesting Mike Brown comments that Mike Brown is a bit hot. I think that they could try some different things, but Trey Lyles being back could help everything.
The real question is, when are they just going to commit to playing Keon Ellis? I mean, every time this guy plays on the season, his on court, he's plus 9.9 points per 100 possessions. When he's on the floor, he was plus 5.5 last year. The on-off difference is plus 10.8 this year when Keon Ellis, the whole thing. And we came into the season thinking this was the thing that they were going to do, because they had so much success at the end of last season, was Malik Monk off the bench, Keon Ellis in the starting lineup, get another on-ball defender in that starting lineup. They're trying to get by on defense with scheme, in terms of packing the paint and trying to take away some of the easy stuff and forcing team to make threes. You got to be in crunch time, they couldn't get stops. And now Keon Ellis was playing a lot in this game, but still they need to get Keon Ellis out there more. So that's the one to me that I'm watching. I know Kobe Jones kind of came out of nowhere. They just got to play Keon Ellis more. It's night is clear as day to me. So, all right. That will do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, we appreciate your support on this free content. If you'd like to continue to support this channel, the best way to do so is to subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can hit the bell and get notifications whenever we post new content, like our podcast, which we wrapped up the Emirates NBA Cup with a finals review and kind of what it means big picture for the Milwaukee Bucks and the OKC Thunder. That podcast is available on this YouTube page as well. If you're interested in joining us for the premium content, you can go to establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for more details on our premium product offerings. There will be a sale next week for the holiday, so be ready for that. And as always, if you're interested in circulating this specific piece of content and feeding that algorithm, the best way to do so is to smash that like button. Feed that algorithm, helps feed our families, allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your season-long lineups, your DFS lineups, and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, feed that algorithm, enjoy the 13-game slate today. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Take care, everybody.